The glass hit my shoulder before I even realized she was standing. Orange juice slid down my coat sleeve, sticky, cold, deliberate. The room went quiet in that strained, professional way conference rooms do when something inappropriate happens, but no one knows who is allowed to react. It was 9:12 a.m. The inheritance meeting had started 12 minutes earlier. My husband's lawyer sat at the head of the walnut table, reading from a stapled document thick enough to bend under its own weight. My daughter-in-law didn't apologize. She placed the empty glass beside my folder and leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough that the microphones wouldn't catch it. "Enjoy sleeping where you belong," she said, with the strays. No one corrected her, not her husband, not the junior associate taking notes, not the financial advisor scrolling through spreadsheets on a tablet. I dabbed my sleeve with a paper napkin. It tore immediately. Cheap fibers stuck to the fabric. Across the table sat 3 binders labeled estate transfer, property liquidation, and asset realignment. All pre-tabbed, color-coded, already decided. My name appeared nowhere on the covers. That part didn't surprise me. What surprised me was the timing, because 20 minutes earlier, in the hallway outside Conference Room B, the senior partner had pulled me aside after checking my identification twice. He looked confused, then careful, then respectful, and when the lawyer finally reached the financial disclosure section and read my net worth aloud, that was when her smile disappeared. No one addressed the juice. The assistant quietly slid a box of tissues toward me, pushing it across the polished table, without eye contact. I nodded once and blotted my sleeve again, slower this time, careful not to shred the paper. The lawyer resumed reading as if nothing had happened. Primary residence to be transferred under spousal survivorship provisions, pending probate clearance. He stopped, adjusted his glasses, checked the page again. My daughter-in-law leaned back in her chair, one ankle resting on her knee, confident, already bored. Her husband, my son, avoided looking in my direction. He'd been staring at the same paragraph in his binder for the last 5 minutes without turning the page. I watched the lawyer's pen tap, once against the margin. "Before property distribution," he said carefully, "we'll begin with financial disclosures required for estate equalization." He looked toward me, not briefly, fully. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged my presence since the meeting began. My daughter-in-law followed his gaze and smiled faintly, assuming it was procedural. She whispered to her husband, not quietly enough, "This is the part where we explain she can't afford to stay." He didn't answer. The junior associate reached for a separate folder, cream-colored, unmarked, and handed it to the senior partner. The weight of it was obvious from the way his wrist dipped when he took it. He opened it slowly. I noticed the room shift then, not emotionally, structurally. Chairs straightened, pens paused. The financial advisor stopped scrolling. Paper moved. Real paper, not printouts. The lawyer cleared his throat. "For disclosure compliance," he said, "we are required to read all declared independent assets held by surviving spouse." My daughter-in-law exhaled sharply through her nose. "This should be quick," she said. The lawyer didn't respond. He adjusted the microphone slightly, though it was already aligned. "Declared liquid assets," he read, "held across 3 registered accounts." He paused again, scanning, totaling $4.8 million. Silence didn't fall. It tightened. My son finally looked up, confusion replacing avoidance. He blinked once, then leaned forward as if proximity would change the number. My daughter-in-law laughed lightly. "That can't be right," she said. "You must be reading joint holdings." The lawyer shook his head without looking at her. "Independently registered. Documentation verified this morning." He turned a page. The sound of thick stock paper sliding over itself filled the room. Slow, deliberate. Investment portfolios, diversified municipal bonds, and private equities. Another pause. Valued at $6.3 million. The assistant stopped writing. I noticed because her pen hovered midline, ink pooling at the tip. My daughter-in-law lowered her ankle from her knee. "Where would she even get that?" she asked, not to anyone in particular. The lawyer continued. commercial property holdings, 3 units, fully leased. He listed addresses. 1 downtown, 2 near the medical district, all purchased more than a decade ago. Before my husband retired, before my son married, before my daughter-in-law entered the family, I folded the damp napkin and set it beside my folder. Juice had reached the cuff seam but hadn't stained through. Aggregate property valuation. The lawyer said $8.1 million. The financial advisor finally spoke. I wasn't aware these were separately managed. The lawyer gave a small nod. They were not disclosed within the marital estate. Legally permissible. My daughter-in-law's voice sharpened. So you're saying this has nothing to do with my father-in-law's assets? Correct. Her eyes flicked to me, then properly, for the first time that morning. Not dismissive now. Calculating. The lawyer turned another page, thicker this time, reinforced tabs. Business interests, he said. My son frowned. She doesn't own a business. The lawyer read, anyway, minority ownership shares in 2 logistics firms and 1 medical supply distributor. He listed incorporation dates, all predating my husband's final illness. Dividends noted, quarterly distributions, documented reinvestment. The junior associate passed him a supplementary sheet. He reviewed it briefly. Combined valuation, $9.7 million. The room went completely still. Not shocked. Recalibrating. I heard the printer in the adjacent office begin a job. Rhythmic, mechanical, grounding. My daughter-in-law leaned forward now, palms flat on the table. This is irrelevant, she said. We're here about the house. The lawyer met her gaze calmly. It's directly relevant to survivorship negotiations and estate balancing. She shook her head, impatient. The house was my father-in-law's. She can't maintain it. I opened my folder then, my first movement since the reading began. The hinge made a soft leather creak. Inside were 3 documents, not new, prepared months earlier. I slid the top one across the table toward the lawyer. He glanced down. Recognition showed immediately. He adjusted his posture. For record clarity, he said, lifting the document, the primary residence title was refinanced and co-secured 14 years ago. He rotated the page outward so the room could see the signature block. My husband and I held joint survivorship. However, he scanned further. The mortgage balance was cleared using independent funds transferred from Mrs. Halvorson's private accounts. My daughter-in-law blinked. That doesn't change ownership. The lawyer shook his head. It changes equity weight. He placed the document beside the estate binder, then added the second page I'd provided. And this, he said, is the post-clearance title amendment. My son leaned sideways to read it. His face lost color gradually, not suddenly like a dimmer switch lowering. The lawyer summarized for the room. Upon mortgage satisfaction, survivorship converted to sole title protection under asset insulation clause. My daughter-in-law's voice rose slightly. I've never heard of that. It's uncommon, he said, but enforceable. The printer next door stopped. Silence returned heavier than before. I reached for the water glass in front of me. Room temperature, untouched. I took a slow sip while the lawyer arranged the documents into a new stack, separate from the estate binders prepared for distribution. Different category now, different authority. My daughter-in-law stared at the papers, as if proximity might undo them. Then she looked at me again, longer this time. No insult, no smile, just reassessment. The lawyer tapped the top sheet once. For clarity moving forward, he said, the residence cannot be reassigned, liquidated, or reoccupied without Mrs. Halvorson's consent. No one spoke. He turned to the next disclosure section, and we will now proceed to trust structures and protected accounts. The air changed after the word trust. Not louder, tighter. My daughter-in-law sat back slowly, folding her hands in her lap, as if composure alone could restore control. My son picked up his pen, then set it down again, without writing. The lawyer opened a second cream folder. Established 12 years ago, he said, irrevocable asset protection trust, beneficiary designation, discretionary. He looked at me before continuing. Trust administrator. independent fiduciary firm. The financial advisor shifted in his chair. I wasn't provided these documents. That's correct, the lawyer replied. They were not part of the marital estate. My daughter-in-law leaned forward again. So what exactly is in this trust? The lawyer scanned the schedule. 2 commercial properties, 40% share in Halvorson Logistics, liquid reserves totaling $3.2 million. Her jaw tightened. That business was my father-in-law's. The lawyer did not argue. He simply turned a page and read aloud. Initial capital injection, $750,000 transferred from Mrs. Halvorson's personal account on March 14, 2009. He cited the bank reference number. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt procedural. Numbers were harder to dismiss than emotion. My son cleared his throat. That was just family support. I reached into my folder again and removed a thin envelope. It was not dramatic. It was old paper, folded twice, edges worn. I placed it in front of the lawyer. He opened it carefully. Inside was a photocopy of a cashier's check and a signed promissory note. He read the date, same day as the capital injection. He turned it outward for the room. Loan agreement, he said, repayment terms at 3% interest, signed by Mr. Halvorson. My husband's signature sat there in blue ink. The lawyer glanced at the repayment ledger attached. Loan satisfied in full, including interest within 4 years. My daughter-in-law's fingers tapped once against the table. That doesn't make her a founder. No, the lawyer agreed. It makes her a secured lender. The difference settled heavily. The junior associate began writing again, faster this time. I felt the weight of the chair beneath me, solid wood, steady. Across the hall, someone laughed faintly near the copier, unaware of the recalibration happening inside conference room B. My daughter-in-law shifted tactics. This doesn't change what she did after he got sick, she said. The lawyer paused. What specifically? She isolated him, she said. She handled all the finances. She kept me out. Her voice was measured now, not loud. She had found her angle. My son nodded once, reluctantly. The lawyer turned to me. Mrs. Halvorson? I did not raise my voice. March 2nd, 2021, I said. Oncology wing. Room 417. I slid another document forward. Hospital visitor logs. Time-stamped entries. My daughter-in-law's name appeared 3 times across 4 months. Mine appeared 72 times. The lawyer scanned quickly. These are certified copies? Yes. He nodded. My daughter-in-law crossed her arms. That doesn't prove anything. I placed my phone on the table. Screen already unlocked. Email archive open. I scrolled to a thread labeled Care Schedule. Family access. The lawyer leaned slightly to view. There were 12 messages from me offering shared visitation blocks. 9 went unanswered. 3 were declined. Each response polite. Each time stamped. My son looked at the screen longer than she did. I turned the phone back toward myself and locked it. No commentary. The lawyer adjusted the stack of documents. For the record, he said, financial management during illness was executed under durable power of attorney. He retrieved the POA filing from the estate binder, signed 18 months before diagnosis, witnessed, notarized. My husband requested it. I said, the lawyer confirmed the date. My daughter-in-law inhaled slowly through her nose. She was recalculating again. You still can't expect to stay in that house alone, she said finally. The shift was subtle, from accusation to practicality, from moral to logistical. I folded my hands in front of me. I don't expect anything. I said, I already arranged it. The lawyer looked at me. Arranged what? I removed the final document from my folder, a property management agreement, effective date, 2 weeks prior. The house would be placed under long-term lease management beginning July 1st. Tenant screening in progress. My forwarding address listed beneath. A condominium downtown. Paid in full. Closing date completed 3 months earlier. The financial advisor blinked. You've already moved assets? Yes. The lawyer reviewed the closing statement attached. Funds transferred from my private account. No estate involvement. My daughter-in-law stared at the page. So you're just walking away? No, I said. I'm repositioning. The room held that word quietly. The lawyer cleared his throat. For clarity, the residence remains Mrs. Halvorson's sole property. Leasing is her prerogative. My son rubbed his forehead. When were you going to tell us? I answered without hesitation. When it was relevant. The printer next door started again, low mechanical rhythm filling the silence. My daughter-in-law looked at him, then at the lawyer, then back at me. The smile she'd worn earlier that morning was gone entirely now, not replaced with anger, with uncertainty. The lawyer closed the estate binder slowly. We will proceed with remaining disclosures, he said, but the center of the room had shifted. Authority no longer sat where it had been expected, and for the first time since my husband's death, I watched my daughter-in-law realize she had miscalculated the scale. The meeting recessed at 10:47 a.m. Not formally. The lawyer simply closed the binder and said, "We'll take 10 minutes." No one objected. I stepped into the hallway with my folder under my arm. The carpet muffled footsteps. The office coffee machine hissed somewhere near reception. I poured half a cup. It was lukewarm, thin, overfiltered. The kind served in offices that billed by the hour, not by comfort. Behind me, the conference room door opened. My daughter-in-law's voice came first. "We need to talk." I didn't turn immediately. I added a packet of sugar, stirred once, then faced her. Up close, her composure was tighter than it had been inside, lips pressed thin, jaw working. "You've been hiding assets," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "I've been managing mine." She stepped closer. "You let us believe you couldn't maintain the house." "I never said that." Her eyes narrowed. "You didn't correct it either." I took a sip of coffee, still lukewarm. Assumptions aren't contracts. She exhaled sharply, then shifted tactics again. "We've already started renovations." That made me pause. "Renovations?" "For the nursery," she said. "Contractors begin Monday." I set the coffee on the ledge beside the copier. "When were they authorized?" Her silence lasted 1 second too long. "We assumed." "You signed agreements?" I asked. She folded her arms. "It's my husband's family home." I opened my folder again, this time removing a thinner set of papers, printed emails. I handed the top sheet to her. She didn't take it, so I held it between us until she did. It was a contractor estimate request submitted 3 weeks earlier. Her name listed as property contact. My address listed as project site. She scanned it quickly. "That's just an estimate." I flipped to the second page. Deposit invoice. Paid. Company letterhead at the top. Scheduling confirmation attached beneath. Her voice lowered. "It was refundable." "Was it?" I asked. I slid the third page forward. A permit pre-filing request with the city planning office. Submitted electronically. Applicant name. Hers. Property ownership field. Listed incorrectly as family estate. The copier beside us began cycling. Loud, mechanical, repetitive. She stared at the permit longer than the invoice. I was preparing. She said, "Finally." "For work on property you don't own." I said. She didn't answer. Behind her, my son stepped into the hallway, drawn by the silence. "What's going on?" She turned toward him quickly. "She's threatening contractors now." I handed him the permit copy. He read slower than she had. His brow creased deeper with each line. "You filed this?" "For the nursery," she said. "It's just paperwork." "It lists ownership," he said quietly. She looked away. He flipped to the deposit invoice. "You paid them?" She didn't respond. The hallway felt narrower suddenly. Copier noise, coffee machine steam, receptionist typing at the far desk. Ordinary sounds carrying weight. I retrieved another document from my folder, this one older, filed 6 months prior. A property protection notice lodged with the county registry after my husband's diagnosis. Prevented unauthorized structural modifications during medical incapacity. Filed under my POA authority at the time. I handed it to the lawyer, who had just stepped out of the conference room. He reviewed it quickly. "This is active," he confirmed. My daughter-in-law's voice sharpened. "You're saying I can't renovate my own family home?" The lawyer didn't raise his tone. "I'm saying you don't have renovation authority." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "So, what, you're going to sue me over a nursery?" "No," I said. "I'm documenting actions taken without consent." Her eyes flashed. "You're making this adversarial." I held her gaze evenly. "You made it structural." The lawyer stepped between us slightly, not physically, just procedurally. "Any contracted work entered without ownership or lease authority is voidable," he said. "Deposits may not be recoverable." She turned to him sharply. "You're on her side now?" "I'm on the side of enforceable filings." The copier stopped. Silence returned again. My son handed the permit back to her slowly. "You should have told me," he said. She didn't take it immediately. When she did, her grip bent the paper slightly. I reached for my coffee again. Cold now. I didn't drink it. Instead, I removed one final item from my folder, a printed email chain between her and the contractor. Subject line: timing before legal clears. The lawyer read over my shoulder. His expression didn't change, but his pen came out. "Would you like this entered into meeting record?" he asked. I nodded once. My daughter-in-law's voice dropped to a whisper. "You've been building a case." "No," I said. "I've been keeping copies." The distinction sat there between us. Heavy, unavoidable. The conference room door opened again. "Shall we resume?" the junior associate asked. We returned to the table without speaking further. But the shift was complete now. Not emotional, procedural, because for the first time, her own filings had entered the estate record. And once documents enter record, they don't leave. The meeting resumed at 11:02 a.m. Chairs settled. Binders reopened. The assistant replaced the water glasses while avoiding eye contact with anyone directly involved. The lawyer adjusted the microphone again, though it hadn't moved. "For record continuity," he said, "we will now address pre-probate actions impacting estate stability." He slid the printed contractor emails into a new tabbed section labeled Unauthorized Filings. My daughter-in-law watched the paper disappear into the binder. Her posture remained upright, but her shoulders had drawn inward slightly, contained tension, not collapse. My son kept his hands flat on the table, fingers spread, unmoving. The lawyer continued. "Mrs. Halvorson has provided documentation indicating renovation contracts initiated without ownership authority." He turned a page. "Additionally, a municipal permit pre-filing was submitted listing inaccurate property control." He looked toward my daughter-in-law. "Would you like to clarify intent for the record?" She exhaled slowly. "It was preparatory," she said. "We expected occupancy after probate." The lawyer nodded once, neutral. "Expectation does not confer authority." He wrote a brief notation in the margin. The sound of pen on heavy paper was louder than it should have been. The financial advisor leaned forward slightly. "Are there financial liabilities attached to these filings?" The lawyer answered without looking up. "Deposits paid under misrepresented authority may be non-recoverable. Contractor discretion." My daughter-in-law's jaw tightened again. "That's not misrepresentation. It's family planning." The lawyer flipped to the property registry notice I had filed months earlier. Property protection status was active at time of contractor engagement. He said, "That elevates exposure." My son spoke for the first time since returning to the room. "How much exposure?" The lawyer reviewed the contractor invoice. "Deposit $48,000. Non-refundable under mobilization clause." Silence landed heavier than before. Not emotional, financial. The assistant's pen paused again, midline. My daughter-in-law turned toward me. "You could have warned us." I kept my hands folded. The notice was public record. She looked back at the lawyer. "You're treating me like I broke into the place." "No," he said calmly. "I'm treating filings as filings." He slid another sheet into the binder. The email subject line visible. Timing before legal clears. My daughter-in-law saw it. Her voice lowered. "That email was private." Not once submitted into estate dispute review, the lawyer said. He tapped the binder lightly. It becomes procedural. The financial advisor shifted again. Does this trigger audit review? The lawyer nodded. Standard response when unauthorized property filings intersect with estate transfer. He reached for a new folder, darker stock, stamped probate oversight. This will be forwarded to the court liaison. My son's chair creaked slightly as he leaned back. Audit? Over a nursery? Over documentation patterns. The lawyer corrected. He turned another page, which brings us to financial timing overlap. He retrieved the contractor deposit record again. Deposit paid April 3rd. He opened a second statement, one I hadn't provided. Estate liquidity ledger. On April 2nd, he continued, a transfer request was initiated from estate operating reserves. My daughter-in-law went still. Transfer to what? My son asked. The lawyer scanned. Interior renovation holding account. He looked up slowly. Submitted under provisional executor access. My son frowned. That access wasn't approved yet. The lawyer nodded. Correct. He turned the page, so both of them could see the authorization line. Digitally signed. Her name. The junior associate stopped typing entirely now. My daughter-in-law spoke carefully. That transfer never completed. No, the lawyer agreed. It was flagged and halted pending probate clearance. He paused. However, the attempt is recorded. The room felt smaller again, the air conditioning humming faintly above us. My son stared at the page longer than he had at any document that morning. You try to pull estate funds, he asked quietly. It was for the house, she said. For us. Before probate, he replied. She didn't answer. The lawyer slid the transfer request into the same unauthorized filing section. Paper aligning against paper. Document stacking into pattern. Given overlap between unauthorized contractor engagement and provisional estate fund request. He said, probate oversight will likely expand review scope. My daughter-in-law's composure wavered for the first time. You're escalating this unnecessarily. I'm documenting sequencing, he replied. He closed the binder halfway. The court determines escalation. The financial advisor cleared his throat. Will this delay estate distribution? Yes, the lawyer said, until audit review concludes. My son rubbed his temples slowly. How long? 60 to 90 days. My daughter-in-law's voice sharpened. You're delaying our inheritance over paperwork. The lawyer didn't react to the tone. I'm delaying it over filings. He turned one final page, which includes recorded statements made during property planning communications. He reached for his tablet and tapped twice. A transcript summary appeared, contractor call notes. He read aloud, quote, we need the nursery ready before legal complications, slow access. Her eyes closed briefly. Those were private planning conversations. They were recorded by the contractor for project documentation. He said. He placed the transcript into the binder beside the emails and transfer request. Words, documents, filings, 3 separate sources, 1 sequence. The room absorbed it quietly. The assistant resumed typing. Slower now, deliberate keystrokes marking the record. The lawyer closed the binder fully, given documentation alignment. He said, probate court will initiate procedural review. No one spoke. Outside the conference room, the printer started again, steady, indifferent to the consequences being assembled inside. I sat back slightly in my chair, not relieved, not satisfied, just still, because once systems engage, they move on their own timelines. The audit notice arrived 8 days later. Certified mail. Court seal stamped in blue across the envelope flap. It was delivered at 10:16 a.m. I signed for it on the building lobby clipboard, the pen tethered with plastic cord, ink faint from overuse. My son called that evening. Not emotional. Procedural. They're reviewing everything, he said. I assumed they would. I replied. There was a pause filled only by background noise, a television somewhere behind him, low volume, indistinct dialogue. They froze the estate operating account. He added, that's standard. Another pause. Then, quieter. They're reviewing her provisional executor request too. I didn't respond, because there was nothing to add. 3 weeks into review, the first institutional shift appeared. The contractor filed a formal lien protection notice, not against me, but against the estate. Claim, mobilization damages from unauthorized engagement. It triggered a secondary compliance review, not large money by estate scale, but procedurally significant. Emails began circulating between firms, law offices, contractors, registry clerks. Every subject line included the same phrase: pending probate clarification. My daughter-in-law sent her first direct message on May 14th at 7:42 a.m. Subject: misunderstanding resolution. The tone was measured, professional. She referred to the renovation filings as premature administrative actions. Requested joint clarification to avoid reputational misinterpretation. I read it once, then archived it without reply. Not strategic, just unnecessary, because clarification happens through documents, not email tone. The fiduciary firm managing my trust contacted me next. Routine check-in, prompted by probate audit cross-reference. Have there been any external pressures regarding your discretionary allocations? They asked. No, I said. They logged the response. Closed the inquiry. Institutional distance widening quietly around her. By mid-June, my son's company compliance office initiated its own review. Not disciplinary. Conflict of interest exposure screening. His position involved vendor contract approvals. The contractor she engaged had previously bid on one of his firm's projects. No wrongdoing alleged, just overlap documentation. He called me after that notice too. They're just verifying timelines, he said. I'm sure they are. I replied. We spoke for 4 minutes. No accusations. No reconciliation. Just procedural updates. The estate lawyer forwarded quarterly review correspondence in July. Distribution schedules formally delayed pending audit closure. Projected revision window, 90 days minimum. Policy required it once executor authority filings came under review. My daughter-in-law's name appeared repeatedly in the documentation, not as defendant, as initiating party. Language neutral, impact structural. The final institutional shift came quietly. Her provisional executor designation was rescinded, not permanently, conditionally suspended pending audit findings. Authority transferred temporarily to an independent administrator. No vote, no discussion, just procedural reassignment. I received confirmation of the change through a 1-page notice, delivered by Standard Post, not certified this time. I placed it on my kitchen counter beside the condo closing documents. Outside, traffic moved steadily along the avenue, late afternoon light reflecting off passing windshields. Ordinary movement, uninterrupted. My daughter-in-law called once more after that. I let it ring through to voicemail. Her message was brief. Measured again. We should probably speak before this goes further. I deleted it without replaying, because by then, it already had. Probate review closed on September 3rd at 2:18 p.m. I know the time because the notification email arrived while I was replacing a light fixture in the condo hallway. The ladder was still open. Dust from the ceiling vent had settled on the floor beneath me. Subject line. Audit concluded. No irregularities found in asset declarations. Attached, 4-page summary. Findings were narrow. Unauthorized provisional executor filings noted. Estate fund transfer attempt documented. Contractor engagement acknowledged as non-binding. No criminal referral. No sanctions. Just record entries. Her provisional authority was not reinstated. The court appointed the independent administrator through final distribution. Timeline adjusted. That was all. The house lease began October 1st. Tenant profile. Travel nurse, 12-month contract, security deposit cleared. Property management firm handled the walkthrough. I did not attend. They emailed photos instead. The nursery walls remained untouched. No paint. No demolition, just the original guest room, beige carpet vacuumed in straight lines. I approved the lease renewal clause and closed the laptop. My son came by the condo once in November. Not announced. He stood near the entry table while I poured tea. Steam rose lightly from the cup. Jasmine, not too strong. We spoke about traffic, about his commute, about nothing connected to probate. He looked thinner, quieter. I didn't know about the transfer request. He said, eventually. I know, I replied. He nodded once. No apology, no defense, just acknowledgement. He left after 12 minutes, closed the door gently behind him. In December, final estate distribution processed. Funds transferred electronically, clear, clinical. The independent administrator sent a closing letter thanking all parties for cooperation. Language standard, tone neutral. I placed it in the same folder as the audit notice and the contractor emails. Documentation ends where it ends. I drove past the old house once in January. Not planned, just a route adjustment due to road work. The nurse's car sat in the driveway. Porch light on, curtains drawn, ordinary occupancy. The mailbox had a different name printed on adhesive label tape. I did not slow down. There are no further meetings scheduled. No court dates pending. No messages waiting. My daughter-in-law's number remains saved in my phone. It does not ring. The condo hallway light fixture works now. Bright. Even. I replaced the switch plate last week. Small details. Functional. That is enough. Life continues. And that is enough.